are. Beautiful edition of Bastard out of Carolina. It says it's the 20th. We're talking about the 20th anniversary.
Yes.
And you wrote afterward and addressed some issues I was curious about. This book has the distinction of having been banned in our country of freedom. Voice is supposed to be free. And yet books continue to get banned in our schools and libraries. And can you talk a little bit about what it feels like to be a banned author in our fine country?
Well, it keeps great company. Some of my favorite writers have been banned, and for generally the same reasons: being too dangerous, being too provocative, too explicit, writing about violence, writing about sexuality.
Where is your mic, my dear?
I have no idea.
Now it's green.
Ah.
God. Well, you missed all my great lines.
You have many more.
Oh, we'll see. Talk about banned.
So dangerous.
But writing is supposed to be dangerous. You're supposed to, or my assumption when I began writing, you were never going to make any money. You were never going to reach everyone. Therefore, you had to do as much as you could in the service of something you genuinely believed in. And if you do that, and people get upset, well, there you go. It's supposed to be inherently part of the process. And especially when you're young. When you're young, you should go in the most dangerous direction. When you're young as a writer, you should go where you're most afraid and discover the greatest depth. And if people are going to get upset, the mandate is that you be willing to stand in front of them and deal with that. That's always been my assumption. If I can deal with my family, you do not scare me.
Now, Dorothy, you described turning yourself into a writer in your powerful introduction to the story collection Trash. That you were alone, you were training for a job with the Social Security Administration, and filling legal pads with the stories of your life, and you called that purging. And I've always been curious in your work of how you made the movement from that autobiographical, trying to get everything right, to the art of fiction. And what inspired you to do that, and what was the toughest part of doing that?
You know, the thing that's the hardest thing to teach young writers is that it is wonderful to tell your truth, and that's what you should do, but it damn well better be beautiful. And I was a child who learned to love my life in books, and I suspect that some of you are the same way. I remember being 10, 11, 12 years old and falling into novels, like falling into a river. Books so gorgeous, language so powerful that it made what the stories were about reasonable. It has to be beautiful, it has to sing. That takes work, and that also takes letting go a lot of your personal agendas. And almost all writers come to writing with something they want to accomplish. That's wonderful, purpose is wonderful. The problem is if you get very strident or very determined or very political, then your language suffers. And you write in a doctrinaire, clipped language that I don't want to read. I want language that makes me drunk. And for me, the language has to either take me up out of myself or make me drunk. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly know what you mean. Yeah.
So really great poetry. Ecclesiastes, for God's sake. Just read Ecclesiastes over and over again. You will be a better writer. Just because you have to match the glory of that language. That's what you do as a writer. The problem is you have to learn to throw away a lot of words. A lot of dead sentences, a lot of flat, borrowed, effective language. And a lot of the problem I had as particularly being who I was coming out of the South, growing up poor, growing up lesbian and ashamed of that, meant that I was constantly having to edit myself. Now, I learned that I can't edit myself for content or story, but that I have to edit myself for language. I will do anything you want.
Now there's an offer. Now,
Because you were charming up there, and I like charming women, but how do I get it closer?
could you put it on your collar? Yeah, try your shirt. So I'm
This is
listening to you.
embarrassing.
Oh,
Technically, I'm
tech-
inept.
Aren't we all? Is that going to
I'm
stay
gonna
on?
drop
Some
it.
help with that?
I always think that's pitiful. Hang on. Okay, that is a collar.
That is a collar.
I could put it on my necklace, but then it would clink against the chain. I can't.
So let me try. All right.
As a technique, I recommend saying, help.
How's that?
Is that better?
Is that better? Talk some more.
Just a little bit? I'll turn my face.
You could just hold it. Okay.
I could. I've been known to do that.
I'll ask another question. We'll see how this goes.
Oh, every
so
time I look at you?
Talk to me, please. Yeah. Now that's better?
Can you hear me when I'm...
See?
The hell with it.
Really?
We'll just do the best we can.
You can always
It's
just
Chicago.
hold it.
You're a resilient bunch. Listen harder.
Listen, yeah, move forward. Well, so we're talking about sound
And language.
and language.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about music. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of music in your
Mhm.
fiction. Did you love music too as a girl?
Absolutely.
Some
It's a
music and
tricky
language?
thing because Bastard is written around a lot of gospel music. Oh, you're a good young man.
thank you.
I love these things.
There we go. All right.
You wouldn't think a lesbian would love a phallic object so much. But I can control these suckers. And if I read fiction, I've been known to blow them up.
Thank you. I get one too.
Especially if you do a really strong gospel intonation.
Yes, let's talk a little bit about the
Yeah,
music.
I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, the child of a mother who absolutely loved both gospel and country western music. Okay, let us be clear. I loved rock and roll. And that means that all those streams came together for some of the worst music in the world. And we're clear about this, right? You familiar with country western music? I'm hungry for your loving and I'm waiting in your welfare line. You know that kind of music? Tacky, predictable, banal language, repetitive. Rock and roll, one slight step up, but still repetitive. And then gospel. And gospel was Ecclesiastes. And really great gospel just grabs your heart and wrenches you. So when I went to write Bastard, I used a lot of gospel, a lot of intonation. And if you really look closely, you will see lines where I steal lines from great gospel songs and then rework them. And that's the theme of the book. But the book moves from gospel to rock and roll because it's about a young girl going into her teen years. And by the end, you got Elvis Presley over in the next county. You probably didn't notice that. It was important to me. But it's it is the intonation of gospel music, which is a lot of repetition, a lot of a kind of poetry that echoes, you won't know anything about this, but second syllable. Not in syllables on words, but second syllable. Listen to gospel music because it's about getting the intonation and timing. And so the language of people speaking follows along with the language that they go to revivals and listen to. It's a little strident. It's a little bossy. It's got great rhythm. Yeah.
It works. So you have the artistic elements in your work,
Mhm.
and while you're working, crafting your fiction and your essays, you are also out in the world as an activist. And you have said that the women's movement is what really helped you become a writer. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about activism and art and how you balance these two things.
You mean this city where the community organizer went on to be president? Yeah.
And is also a writer, by the way, which...
But the thing that people forget or may not know is that the early women's movement particularly was a movement of writers, particularly poets, and particularly bad poets. And bad poets have an enormous amount of purpose and energy. And, you know, I was a baby bad poet.
I teach writing bad poetry. One word. You put the two, bad poetry. It's a form, and it essentially you have to be willing to take some enormous risks. You have to be willing to have people be upset at you. And that's a lot of what being a community organizer is about. It's about letting people yell at you. We were talking earlier, and I said the greatest training ground of my life is that as a teenager, I worked as a waitress. You work as a waitress, you are ready to do anything. You have learned how to have people be rude to you, and you can be polite in response. And you can be polite in a way that will make them miserable. To be a community organizer is to always be willing to have the community hold you accountable. But you have to have some stuff you really deeply care about. In the early women's movement, it is hard for me to talk to young women today and explain to them what it was like when I was their age. I remember getting my first job at the Social Security Administration, trying to rent an apartment, not being able to get a credit card, because at that point in time, if you were a woman, to get a credit card, you had to have a husband or a father co-sign. You didn't get a credit card as a woman on your own. That just didn't happen. This was 1971, 72. And explaining to young girls, you didn't used to have the right to have your own independent credit. Can you imagine me going to Central Florida and asking my stepfather to sign an application for me to have my own apartment? That was not going to happen. So I became very provocatively active, mostly in just claiming what seemed to me human rights. And then put on it the fact that I'm a lesbian, and that trying to learn not to be ashamed. This is also hard to explain to the young people, because we've worked so hard to let the young people not be ashamed. But honey, I was born in 1949. And by the time I was 10, I figured out that my hope chest was not aimed in the same direction that everybody else's was. And that life was going to be very, very complicated. And I could either be provocative and declamatory, or shy, retiring, and scared and ashamed. I couldn't do much about the scared. I was always going to be scared. But I could damn well fight off shamed. And that was a lot of the things that I became most active in as a young person, especially 19, 20 years old, ready to die. Ooh, I mean, what's one thing to die for lust? I mean, everybody has that romance, the beloved. I'm die for you, honey. But to die for an ideal, to be treated with contempt in public for an ideal, to believe in justice so strongly that you're willing to let people humiliate you on a daily basis, that was the life of a 20-year-old lesbian in Tallahassee, Florida, in 1959, 69, 70. Yeah. But then you just get a whole bunch of others, and you all go downtown in a large group. You get together 200-300 dykes, especially with banners and posters and chants. It was just kind of exhilarating and wonderful. It was almost as good as sex. Community organizing on that level. And it seemed to me that almost everything I did, particularly in my early 20s, was about things that did not directly bear on my life. Fighting for abortion rights. Let me tell you, girls don't make girls pregnant. It just doesn't happen. It's one of my sister's great resentments. She was of the opinion that I should have been made pregnant early on, the way she was. And it was just that I was going out with girls, and then I was so lucky. And then fighting for childcare, and fighting for rape consciousness, and fighting for crisis intervention and battered women's shelters. It seemed to me that everything that I did was completely reasonable and necessary. And at the point at which I was doing that in my 20s, almost every other woman I know believed that it was necessary. And so yeah, we were out there in our hundreds with posters and banners. Very great parties. Potlucks like you would not believe. I can see enough gray hair. Yes, there are potluck ladies in this crowd. Mm-hmm.
So, having experienced all that,
Yeah.
how do you feel now when young women say they're not feminists? I'll sing it.
Oh, God. It breaks my heart. I think the saddest thing is that if a young woman says, I'm not a feminist, but, and it's usually a but, thank God, what I know is that sooner or later she's going to come up face to face with someone who is going to treat her with less than respect. And then if she is denied that she is a feminist, where is going to be the backup? Where are going to be the girlfriends that are going to stand with her? For God's sake, she won't even know how to organize a potluck. You need a defense committee. You really do need a defense committee. I mean, that's one banal way of talking about it. But to be a woman trying to have a career, trying to be an organizer, I don't know if you know about VIDA. VIDA is Google it, babies. Google VIDA, V-I-D-A. And it's a woman writers organization that is essentially doing one simple thing. They are documenting the statistics on publication and reviews of women's work. And that means that they will give you figures on which magazines review women's books, which do not. Or if they do, what are the percentage? And the percentages are horrific. The majority of writers are women. Did you know this? The majority of readers, buyers of books, are women. But the majority of books reviewed in the major magazines are books by men. So you get a young feminist writer, and she is going to write this book that she is passionate about, that she cares about. She's going to do the work. She's going to tame her language. She's going to take huge risks. Put that book out there, and it will not be reviewed. It will not get any attention. And if it does get attention, Christ, baby, save her, she'll be chick-lit. The most contemptible slogan in the way of dismissing a book before you read it. I watch young women writers get their hearts broken repeatedly. And the ones who say, I'm not a feminist, baby, at least access the weapons you have. At least reach out to the community that might help you and support you and keep you sane. Go Google VIDA. Look at the numbers. It's pretty deadly.
So I'm particularly intrigued by this pulling away from feminism in light of our current political situation. And I mean, the festival is about America, and we have been subjected to some of the most regressive medieval comments by politicians about rape and abortion I've ever heard.
Legitimate rape.
Legitimate rape.
Yeah.
A woman's body shuts that thing down.
Wow.
Wow.
Science
What
fiction.
planet? Yes, exactly.
Ursula Le Guin could have written that story. If she'd written it, I'd read it. No, it's been pretty... I have a deep terror about addressing politics right now because I'm almost hysterical. I am terrified. Are you terrified? God. Last night I was talking to the waitress and I'm eating a salad and we're talking, and next thing you know she's sitting down and we're talking and she's reassuring me. Chicago is going for Obama, she said, and I'm like, well, thank God. And then she says, California's going for Obama, and I'm like, okay. And then to talk about what it is like to be a plaything of the politicians. I mean, I'm a married lesbian. Do you know what that means? It means I'm one of the 11,000 people in California that got in under the deadline before they made it illegal. So I'm legally married, which is kind of ridiculous because I actually don't believe in marriage. I'm a radical lesbian feminist, and we have some boundaries and convictions, and I believe in contract relationships, and making commitments to raise children. But marriage gets all messy and troublesome. But I'm also a sucker for a pretty woman, and when the law it was clear that there was going to be some legal action and Proposition 8 was going through, Kate Kendall called me up and says, you got to get married. And I'm like, I don't want to get married. And she says, you got to get married. You're a public person, and you've been with the same woman for all these years. It's 20 years. And my son burst into tears. Yes, get married. My son made me buy a wedding dress. When Gavin Newsom was getting all them people married in San Francisco, my little teenage boy takes me to the thrift store and grips this wedding gown and says, you have to get it. You have to get married. Children are so conservative. So I caved in, and we got married on All Souls Day, which I thought was appropriate. But then immediately became a plaything in the hand of politicians, because I do not believe that gay marriage is a radical act. actually. But clearly, conservative politicians think it is, and think that it is like a great sin. So we are constantly being subjected to lectures about how, gay marriage is going to collapse the empire. All right. I could go with collapsing the empire. If that would do it, but I don't think that's going to do it. That my personal, intimate relationships should be so dangerous. But it's amazing. To be a lesbian woman is to be the most dangerous creature on the planet, especially if you listen to conservative politicians. It's hard to occupy that niche, and to occupy it with a sense of humor is the only way I know to deal with it. But it's not funny. It's not funny when your life is used that way, especially when it gets down to Planned Parenthood. I mean, next to St. Dorothy's Rest, the Catholic retreat for ex-nuns and priests out in Northern California, I know of no more worthy organization than Planned Parenthood. I mean, yes, they will help you get abortions, and yes, that's controversial, but they will also help you get pap smears, and help you get cancer treatment, and help you get basic medical information, and that there should be people dedicated to the destruction of this enormously wonderful service organization, and that I could be part of how they fight it, that me, with my little lesbian fingertips moving through the world, that I could be an instrument for taking away something my sisters both have deadly needed at different times. Both of my sisters have had babies, abortions, and cancer, and Planned Parenthood was there for them in all three. No, it's a scary time. You need a little determined poetic activism. We need better chants, though. We need some real lyrical things to say in the street. Yeah.
Well, in thinking about the power of the writer's voice and the presence of literature. Sorry. In thinking about the power of the writer's voice and the presence of literature in the public square, writers used to be hugely controversial, and so were artists of all kinds. There were riots over art shows. And now it seems that in the great electronic sea of Babel, it's harder to be heard. Do you feel that way about writing in general and about emerging writers in particular?
It's harder to find, it's harder to make a living.
Yeah.
It's harder to find an audience. But I don't find any diminishment in the need for story, or any diminishment in people's passionate engagement with literature. I do tell young writers that if you publish a book now, you're not just competing with all the other baby writers who are publishing a book this season. You're basically competing with everybody who ever published a book in history, and they'll get it for a nickel on Amazon, and then they'll pay the postage. Everybody's making money on postage. Nobody's making any money on books. This has an immediate impact on writers' ability to survive and do interesting work. I may be one of the few people who doesn't twit. I don't tweet, Facebook. I just know. My friend Jewel does, and she tells me what I'm missing, and that's good enough. And I don't blog. I have a website, and occasionally, about twice a year, I'll write something in the journal page on it. But young writers who blog and write, I understand, because what a young writer needs, you need a basic day job. Let's be clear. You got to have an income to pay the rent, and you got to have health insurance, especially right now. But then what you need as a writer is an audience. You need it more than anything else. You need people who are waiting for the story. You need people who will understand and love your language. You need that more than cash. I will not disdain cash. I've been poor. I hate being poor. I don't ever want to be poor again, even though I appear to be sliding into the donut hole of poverty, like all other writers. But you need really to have your stories taken seriously. Some of you are writers. All of you are readers. You're in the Chicago Public Library. You came in through the doors under those gargoyles, which I always think of as being the defenders of literature, those big, green, gorgeous, scary things. You come into the world of being a writer the dream is that your language will make a difference. The dream is that what you believe in will move out from you like a tsunami, that the wave of your story will move through the world and people will ripple. Do you know what I'm saying? People will move in response to the story you want to tell. That's what every writer wants. I mean, I know there are those writers who want movie rights and big bucks. And I got no complaint with the cash. I'm clear about cash. But that's not why I write. That's not why most of the young people I work with write. I worked with one of my students who's Justin Torres, and he's a brilliant young writer. And the first time I worked with him in a workshop in Los Angeles, he just vibrated. He wanted so much to get it right. He wanted his words to sing on the page, and he was telling dangerous stories. He was writing out of this broken Puerto Rican family. He was writing out of being the oldest queer boy with his rough brothers and his father who was both enraged at him and loved him. And he was writing in complicated, passionate ways. And when I would work with him and he would read me sections, you could hear in his voice the strain. You know, he wanted that wave to come back. And that's what we want. You want to put that wave out there, that rush of language and conviction and story, and you want it to come back. You want the tremble in the audience. You want the indrawn breath. You want somebody to say, oh, that's exactly how it was for me. Or, oh, I never knew it was like that. You have to create in young writers the confidence that the risk is worth the trouble. And you can't do it by talking to them about money, but you can do it talking to them about that wave that comes back, being at their backs and saying, this is good. Because when you're a baby writer, you can't tell what's good. You can just tell some things put your teeth on edge, and some things make your heart pound, and you're going for the heart pounding. It's been wonderful to work with young writers who, just because I was there at the right moment. I remember when Justin called me actually, and he was thinking about, I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, hang on, just hang on. We'll get you a scholarship, we'll get you into one more program. And now his book is out from Knopf. He won a U.S. Artist Prize.
Yeah. We Be Animals.
We Be Animals, which is gorgeous. You know, language that sings. People that are recognizable immediately and dangerous, really dangerous.
It's very moving to know that you were behind that book, which I agree with you completely.
I got a list.
Powerful book. Yes, I'm sure you do. And Dorothy, don't you think that more voices like Justin's are being published now? That there's more presence of real people in our books?
I think so. I taught in that same program, in the Lambda Literary Program in July in LA, and one of these boys comes up to me and he's like, I would get into an enterprise just when it collapses. I would become a writer at the death of publishing. And I'm like, actually, put the money aside. Put capitalism over here let's put capitalism over there. Let's talk about literature. What is happening right now is just a boom in small presses and online publishing. You can get access to extraordinary young writers. I sometimes think we should put collection pots out just to get some cash for them, because a lot of where they're publishing these days, there is no remuneration. They're just, their stuff is online and you can download it, or they're publishing with small presses that are, barely surviving but doing amazing books. I think there is a boom in publishing happening. However, on the level of paying our writers and distribution, it's still very, very tricky, very complicated.
Yeah, it's really a mess. I'm sure book lovers know about the Penguin Random House merger, which to me sounds like something out of a bad futuristic novel. I mean, let's just keep stringing names together. But what I think happens is when that sort of consolidation and commercialization occurs, you can't shut people up. People keep writing and keep talking about books and sharing books. And, that's the amazing thing, Dorothy, about what you do. You write alone and you read alone, but then books bring us together. I mean, everything you do out in public, you bring people together, as here today. And that's such a force. It has nothing to do with corporations, nothing.
When I was talking to some people outside earlier, we were talking about book groups. You know, where we all get together, we read the same book, and we potluck. My experience with book groups is they potluck. I think it's the resurgence of lesbian feminism. Everybody's making macaroni casserole and reading good books and talking about them. That kind of exchange. One of the things I find, because I go to book groups, I really love them. And sometimes I go when my girlfriend's books are being read. You know, if Karen Joy Fowler has a new book and there's a book group near me, I go and sit in the back and listen at the library. The thing that happens is how passionate people become. It's like the river I fell into as a girl. In this place, someone makes sense out of what does not make sense. And that's what story is about. When I had my insomnia last night, postmenopausal, insomnia is a way of life. Get up, do something. I found myself thinking about Ron Rash. Do you know Ron's work? Ron tells the most terrible stories. He's a good old boy, which is to say, lives in the mountains on the border of North and South Carolina, and writes stories that'll just crack your heart. Wonderful novels. He's got that incredible novel about the Biltmore family that's based on the woman, forgetting her name. But he writes these stories in which horrific things happen. And last night I'm laying in the bed and I'm retelling myself a Ron Rash story. And if you know the story, it's a story about poverty and pride. And it's the story of this family up in the hills. And somebody is stealing chickens. Somebody is stealing eggs. And the farmer is telling the story. And he's talking about his eggs are going missing. And his wife is so angry that it's set in roughly the Depression era, which in the South lasted longer than in other places. And he's telling the story of how mad his wife is that somebody is sneaking in and stealing eggs. And he thinks it's a dog or it's a snake. So his plan is he's going to put a fish hook in an egg and catch the snake or catch the dog. But the wife is so angry that when the neighbors who live down the hill, who are even poorer, come walking up the road, she's standing on her porch and she starts talking bad about their dog. Dogs steal eggs, she says. And here's this family, so poor they don't even have a wagon. They're carrying produce in to sell it in the small town. And the man who is leading his wife and his 3 half-starved children stops in the middle of the road, turns around, and shoots his own dog. Because in his pride, he cannot be accused of having an egg-stealing dog. And he picks up his produce and walks into town. And of course, the woman is horrified that she's made this happen, but at the same time, she's still pissed off. But the person who's telling us the story is her husband, the farmer. And he's trying to love his wife, even as she's being so mean and nasty and angry. And he's trying to understand, and he's trying to forgive her for what she has just done. And then in the night, when he hears the cackle of the hens, he goes down to the hen house and opens the door. And there, with a fish hook in her cheek, is the youngest daughter of that farmer. And then he's helping her push that fish hook through her face, because there's no other way to get it out. That's a Ron Rash story. Now that would be the meanest, heartbreaking story, right? But you're in the farmer's mind, and the story is the voice that tells you the story. And he, looking at that girl, wiping the blood off her face, is thinking about his wife, who was just like that girl, so poor, so afraid, and grew up so angry that she would treat people with such contempt out of that fear. And the voice that's telling you the story loves her, loves that girl, loves the whole piece of it. And me, laying in bed telling my story over to telling Ron Rash's story, I love Ron, that he would take me there and show me such grief, such fear, such loss, and such compassion. That's what stories do. That's what the voice does. It's the voice that tells you and takes you somewhere you didn't know you'd get. We got so many bad stories right now. We got so many terrible things happening. You need somebody to tell it with compassion. And, you know, if we could put a can out and pay them a little money now and again, it'd be a good idea too. They'd tell us more stories.
Very powerful, Dorothy, very powerful. And of course, your books are that way too. I think those of us that have read you tell ourselves your stories, as you just told Ron's. And that beauty and the compassion that you talk about, you know, I'm thinking so much about how you move from the personal and the particular into the universal. I mean, in Cavedweller, you give us a story that's so specific to your characters, to Delilah, to Sissy. And then you bring us, you know, to this underground realm, you know, this cave, sort of literally, which also is that, you know, sort of deep collective consciousness that we hold, that emotional place that you tap into. How do you do that?
Metaphor. I don't actually, I mean, I know how to edit, thank God. I know how to reshape story, but where story comes from, I don't know. I know that I become obsessed with something, an idea, an image, a person, a way person talks, and then something starts happening that I can't explain, and it has a lot to do with language. It's about reading. It's about growing up reading constantly, and constantly reading bad poetry and listening to tacky music, and getting the sense that everything happens on more than one level. That on this level, it's all kind of predictable and sad, but take it down, and it becomes essential and lovely, and take it further down, and everything echoes up. I learned from reading Toni Morrison, from reading James Baldwin, from reading Tennessee Williams and Carson McCullers and Flannery O'Connor. I learned that playing with language is the greatest thing in the world. That you can find a word that'll echo another word, and you don't have to use that other word, which would be kind of banal and obvious, but you can use the word that calls up this other word. And then it becomes glorious, complicated, layered, and textured. And the surprise is that when you're fully in the creation, you don't always know what you're doing. You reach for the language, and you invent ways of saying things. And it's only the second or third time you read it that you realize, oh, I said that because, oh, look, that rhymes with that. Oh, my God, of course she's called Sissy. And all of a sudden, all the metaphors fall into place. That happens way down in the process, not in the beginning. And that's, I call it the muscles of the mind. And I try to teach writers to take the risk to do some funny things with language, and take the risk of being obvious or predictable or poetic. You know, nobody wants to be poetic. It's kind of tacky to be poetic. And definitely we don't want to be sentimental. But if you can echo certain stories or concepts that you know your audience has in mind, that can be pretty wonderful. The glory of Bastard is that she's called Bone, and that you can do so much with bones, you know? It's fun. It's also a lot of fun.
It is fun. I mean, the life of the mind is where you want to
Play,
be.
yes,
Where you wanna live,
yes.
yes. And I'm amused listening to you as a critic. When I write about books, I often want to say that a book is poetic, and then I remind myself that's kind of the kiss of death, and I should avoid it. But I hate that. I think it is what it is, and it is beautiful and valuable, and it takes a lot of time to get there. And I love that you remind young writers about that too. That there's such a pressure to do things quickly now. I mean, to tweet, to blog, quick, and that's not how art happens. There is some spontaneity to it, but not on the level you're talking about.
Well, and the making of fiction writers is in the reading of poetry. The more poetry you read, the better a fiction writer you can become, because you have access. Poets are the saints. I've said this before. If there are poets in this room, you are the saints of literature, because you guys don't make a dime. You publish a small book of poetry. Do you know, in most poetry books, publish in less than 1,000 books in an edition. So even if you get, $19 for a really glossy, nice edition of a book of poetry, the poet is going to get 50 cents. 50 cents on 1,000 books. Baby, you're going to starve. Poets starve. Poets survive on grants, awards, and teaching, and the love of good men and women who take them up and support them. I think that the best thing you can do as a poet is marry well. But poetry is the place where everything springs from. Poetry is where we get the courage to really play with language and discover who we are. Do you watch bad television? Well, my favorite new bad television is Nashville, which is prime bad television. It's just, oh honey, it's soap opera of the first order. But the thing I've found fascinating is that the first couple of shows, because I got trapped and I watched 3 in a row on TiVo, all the little songwriters pretend to be poets. They say, well, I was just making a story. And I love the little girl who, she was writing poems, and the boy that's flirting with her, that they're going to have a mad, passionate love affair, probably in 4 or 5 more episodes. He tells her, this is a song. Well, yeah, of course. The great poetry is great songs. And, country western music, well, I don't know. I understand some of the people that they're parodying on that show. But the willingness to be predictable, sentimental, emotional, poetic. When my kid was in elementary school, I used to volunteer and go and be in the classroom. I did it with a deliberate purpose. One, I wanted to bring food, because Northern California food, no. I would bring biscuits and sausage and totally corrupt them, because they were all eating sushi and crackers. But then I would get them to let me read poetry, because I think that the making of particularly youngsters, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, is to read them poetry. Get them to read poems out loud. And if you can bribe them, get them to memorize poems. I could be stuck on a desert island or in any airport in America because I can recite The Highwayman to myself. You give that to a child, you have given them a way to get through sleepless nights and a way to touch eternity. I love that. You have poetry readings here at the library. I know.
So great. So I'm glanced at my watch, and I think maybe we could have some questions from the audience. Does anyone want to do that? I will hand over my microphone with some help. Dorothy, thank you so much. It's so great to talk to you.
If you do have questions, if you can come on up and use the microphone so you can be heard, and also so we can record it, because we are video recording today.
Well, this is hard. They gotta get up.
And you can just queue up over here, or however you can get up here.
I'd give you my recipe for biscuits. The secret is don't use Bisquick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I wonder if you comment, it goes back to having an audience. I just came from a writing seminar with Clarissa Pincola Estes, and she had a wonderful way of encouraging writers by saying, you're writing for the lone soul. And to not get caught in perfectionism, it's not good enough, but think about that lone soul that needs to hear your original voice. I hear some echoing in your thoughts, but I'd love to hear you on that.
She knows what she's talking about. It's not just the lone soul, it's the lonely So it's people who feel themselves isolated. I mean, that's why we pick up books. It's to have another voice in our heads instead of just our own. And yeah, I think that one of my purposes as a teacher is to say, this story's good. There are people who will want to read this story. There are people waiting for this story. And that's the thing. That was what shaped me as a baby radical lesbian feminist writer. There were lots of people who wanted to hear my bad poetry.
And that the audience is the person, that lonely person versus how we think about audiences now that'll reach, 50,000 people. And this interesting time of, the death of one kind of publishing, but the birth of another, that your voice can get out there as an original voice.
Yeah. You're always reaching for the person who's waiting to hear this. If you're writing for the generic large audience, you're screwed. Because basically it doesn't exist. All audiences are composed of isolated, desperate people who can't sleep.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Is that not you?
Hi. You said that, if I understood you correctly, that at the age of about 10 years old, you identified that your chest was going in a different direction. Yeah. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit. Yeah. At such a young age, how did you know that? I mean, what was going on in your head? And at what point did you identify as a lesbian? At what age, I guess? Or
see,
this is such a thing?
This is a big, complicated question. How early did you know that you were going to be wanting to date girls instead of boys?
Exactly.
Yeah. It gets a little confused because the thing that I knew at 10, 11, 12 was that I did not want to be the girl the world wanted me to be. And that was actually more essential than that I was going to be sexually attracted to women. Look, there is no way around this. I was sexually abused as a kid. That means that one of the things that happens is that my access to the sexual charge was delayed and diminished. It was just too dangerous. So it wasn't about lust so much or pair bonding as it was, I don't want to be who they want me to be. I don't want to be that girl who, shuts her mouth and lies and pretends that, oh, you're just so smart, Tommy. No, I wanted to be smart and dangerous. I wanted to carry knives. I wanted to scare people. I wanted my own car. I wanted my own apartment. I wanted a job. I wanted to be an independent, dangerous, unpredictable woman. And lo and behold, I discovered that meant being a lesbian. Well, damn. It really is confusing, especially 10, 11, 12, when you're an incest survivor. At that point in time, it was more important for me to be a feminist, independent woman than it was to be a lesbian. It took me a couple more years for the hormones to kick in and start trailing behind muscular girls on the soccer team. That came too, but the essential identity was not to be the girl they wanted me to be. And you can go back, read novels set in the 30s and 40s. Okay. Read wonderful novels, and the constant struggle is how to be a woman and a full human being. And I remember being a girl and hitting that wall. I want to be a full human being. And in the world that I was living in, that was not allowed for females. You could be a virgin, but it was a kind of hackneyed, chopped off at the knees, apologizing version. I didn't want any apologies. It coincided with a whole lot of other people seeming to have the same idea, which I think is a lot of what the early women's movement was about. At this point, it's history. You can go read Memoirs of a Prom Queen and, oh my God, novels in which women are just beginning to get the idea that they could have their own lives instead of building their lives around other people's expectations. At 10, 11, 12 years old, I was clear. I did not want to be my aunts. I loved them. I admired them. I just didn't want to be them.
All right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi. I'm wondering, wondering what is your advice for a young writer who's struggling to find a voice or a story to tell? I remember that the woman who spoke earlier talked of that you work towards teaching young writers that they have that ability, that they don't have to ask that they can tell their story, that they can just come out and tell their story.
Do you know your story yet?
Somewhat.
Somewhat?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing I know, and I will tell you, write. Write as much as you can, as passionately as you can. Basically, you have to develop that muscle, and it is a muscle that only develops through use. Fear will get in the way. Trying to be good will get in the way. You have to develop an acceptance that you're going to be bad. You will get better. The more you write, the better you'll get. Then you can train yourself in how to edit and make choices about what you'll keep or not keep in terms of words and language. But the thing is, the more you write, the more you will discover what stories you most want to tell. Because the stories that you will bring energy to the page with are the stories you will care most about. And you don't know that when you start. The worst thing I did as a baby writer was try to write like everybody else. It's kind of hard when you don't actually have their experience. You wouldn't believe it, but I could write short stories about growing up in the suburban Yankee suburbs of Manhattan. You wouldn't want to read that. I didn't know shit one about what it was like to grow up in the suburb of Manhattan. But I kept writing, and gradually more and more little bitty Southern family stuff started to creep in. And then at some point, it's like you learn the gears of your own mind, and you can shift into a different gear. You know how when you downshift, do you drive, honey?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
You downshift, that engine grinds harder. You get the smell of gasoline. Something serious is taking place in the entire vehicle. As a writer, that's what you need to learn to do, to downshift. It takes a lot of writing to get access to that gear.
My second question was,
Okay.
in writing Bastard Out of Carolina, did you find any fault in the fact that you wrote about your life? Was there anyone who came up to you later and was like hurt by any things you said? Like, was that something that you had to deal with your family?
Okay. Did you hear the question? Okay. Honey, I am a deeply lucky person. Nobody in my family reads. It is one of the little gifts God gave me. When Bastard came out, they all bought the book. And it's a big family, so there was some cash involved. But they didn't read it. They put it on the shelf and said, my cousin wrote that book. When the movie come out, they watched the movie, and then they got a little pissy. I had one aunt who was upset. One aunt. But I didn't like her anyway. And she was a woman who built her life around the men in her life. And her objection was, I met your stepfather. He had a job his whole life. He was a good man. And I'm like, well, missed it, didn't you? And my other aunts are like, what's wrong with you? We met him too. He was crazy as a, So I had, my aunts were supportive. I had 6 aunts, and 5 were good and 1 was bad. And in terms of numbers, that ain't a problem. But no, they don't read. My sister subscribes to the Stephen King book club. That's it. She reads Stephen King and every occasionally me, but not regularly me. As she has told me, I make her cry. And she don't want to cry. She wants monsters to eat little children.
Thank you.
Get yourself some good family.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing and opening up on everything. And I'm glad predecessor spoke about the movie. I just have to say that I haven't been able to share this with anyone, so now I can. I have never in my life felt that girl who played Bones, if anyone deserves some kind of acting, I just have to just say that because I haven't been able to share it with anyone because not everyone watches Lifetime television. But, not just the writing, but I'm just saying this girl was just phenomenal as Bones. I just need to share that because I just think of it and it just is amazing. It's I mean, to say that, so thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. I agree. She's pretty good. She went on to she's had a marvelous career. I liked it that she then went and made a movie in which she was Julia Roberts' daughter. So I could pretend to be related to Julia. No, the movie was complicated. It's real. I can't watch it. It's upsetting to me. I can't. Too many of the visuals are upsetting. But it was made with love and attention and Angelica Houston's understanding of sexual violence. She doesn't understand humor. And she doesn't understand pacing of humor. Look, one of the ways that you can tell a terrible story is to soften your reader up with something real funny. So humor, gut 'em. Humor, gut 'em. That's how it works. I couldn't seem to get that across to her. And so I think the movie is flawed because she didn't understand working class humor and how it in fact is a survival mechanism. But it's a piece of work. It's a piece of work. My family loves it. All my cousins adore it. Only partly because Lyle Lovett plays one of my uncles in the movie. That has given me a cachet nothing else ever will. We gotta wrap this up. I'm supposed to go upstairs, sign books, and honor the library. Thank you so much.